and welcome to the Entrepreneur's Inner Game podcast. I have a very, very special guest with me today. She's a highly sought after media strategist and coach, specializing in podcasts and podcast guesting. She held a coveted new and Noteworthy distinction from Apple Podcasts for over 2 years and was named in the Huffington Post as one of the 50 must-follow women entrepreneurs. She's been featured on popular podcasts and publications, including Entrepreneur, where her podcast was identified as one of the 48 best podcasts for entrepreneurs. So you can see we have a wonderful, wonderful guest, and you're going to learn so much from her. So I'd like to introduce Nicole Holland. Nicole, welcome to the Entrepreneur's Inner Game podcast. And I'm so excited to have you on here because podcasting, I love podcasting. People listen to podcasts all the time, but there are only a small percentage of entrepreneurs who are utilizing this incredible vehicle to grow their audience, get more leads, get more clients. And I'm really looking forward to digging in with you to find out what the mindset is around being a podcast guest and how this amazing tool can be leveraged. So,
well, great. I am super excited to be here, Nina. I'm honored to be a guest on your show, and thank you. And yeah, let's do it. Let's get into it.
And I know you've been doing different things in your career. We're having a great chat just before we got on here. How did you end up in this field of podcasting? What lured you in?
That's so funny. Great question. And so it's funny because what lured me in was I used to host summits. So back in 2015, I put on my first summit called the Business Building Rockstar Summit. And in that, I had just quit my job as a correctional officer. Nobody knew who I was. I had no street cred in this field. I didn't even know how to use social media. Like, I had been a ghost for years. And I had been to a couple summits, and I thought, well, that is a way for me to connect with the people who are like mentors and way above me and know what they're doing, and ask them questions and share their expertise with people who are like me, seeking that expertise, just starting out, not having a background or connections or whatever, like just going, I hate my job. I'm quitting my job. Now what? Now I'm doing business, but I don't know what I'm doing. So that was the premise of the Business Building Rockstar Show. And what I wanted to do was find 30 different experts who are going to talk about 30 different things. Because what I found to be upsetting when I looked at these summits, and pardon me, my nose is all itchy out of the blue.
We're only on video.
I know. So I'm like, oh gosh. So what I found to be really frustrating was I would sign up for a summit for information about this thing that they were promising. And then I would get all these conflicting advisors telling me, like, do this, do this, do this, do this, about the same, very same thing. And I was just starting out. I think like a lot of your listeners, I was a beginner and I had value, but I just needed the guidance about how to use these different tools like social media and all these different things. And so I decided that in my summit, I wanted to interview 30 different experts about 30 different topics, because all I needed and all a lot of people need is one direction to say, okay, do these steps. The other thing was, in the other summits, I found them to be very sales pitchy. And it was like, okay, well, I'll give you this much information, but now wait, if you want the whole story, you have to pay me. And I didn't like that.
So, don't they?
Yeah, and so I wanted to make sure that my guests were also very giving and very credible, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a little bit of a backstory. When I learned, hey, there's this thing called podcasting, and that's a great way to get your message out there if you're a business owner, I sought out the top person in the field, which at the time I believed to be John Lee Dumas. And so I reached out to him, and asked for him to be a guest on my summit. And he agreed. He came on, he did an interview with me for 30 minutes about how to start a podcast in order to grow your business. And after, he said, "Hey, you're really good at this interviewing thing. Have you thought about podcasting?" And I said, "No, I don't even have an Apple anything. I don't know the first thing about, I don't listen to Apple stuff or podcasts, or I don't even know anything about it." Again, I was coming from being like a correctional officer, right? So
Very
no
difficult.
experience.
Yeah.
Totally different ballgame. And so he said, "Well, it's a lot easier than summits and I can help you." And so after the summit, I thought about it and I go, you know what? Let me check into this. This guy is doing six figures a month consistently. And I'm at maybe $2,000 to $3,000 a month at that point. And it was a struggle. And I thought, how can I make my life easier, give value, and also receive? And so it seemed like it would be a great thing to do. And that's how it started. I joined John and I worked with him and launched my first podcast in March of 2016. March 21st, 2016 was the birth of the Business Building Rockstar show.
Amazing. And what happened then?
I went right to the top. Not right to the top. I would say like probably in about 2 to 3 weeks in, I started getting some attention and started moving up the list and finally made it to new and noteworthy in my space, which was business management and marketing at the time. iTunes has changed a lot. Apple Podcast has changed a lot since then. They've renamed categories, but yeah, I hung out there for about 2.5 years as a new and then noteworthy podcast, and until I sort of kind of closed the book on that show for a while. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I made amazing connections. And I, from the beginning, never needed guests because I already had my summit. So all the summit guests wanted to naturally say yes to me because they had a great experience on the summit. And I wanted to give them a great experience on the podcast. And so one thing, you talk about mindset on your podcast. So one thing I want to bring in there is I don't have fear around asking or connecting with people um, who are quote at a higher level than me. And I think that's something about me that puts me in a positive position for getting guests and getting what I want or making connections. I'm a connector. And so it's what I do for people. Um, in fact, today it's so funny. I had a friend late last night. I was going through Facebook before heading to bed, which is a terrible, terrible thing to do. But he had posted something on his feed about wanting to connect with a specific influencer. Does anybody he knows have like a personal connection? Because he just wanted to send a thank you email because this person affected him really profoundly. And I thought it's such a strange thing that he wrote because this is somebody who is an absolute celebrity. Like this guy who wrote this. I'm thinking that's so weird. Like you're like famous
Yeah.
and you're sitting there like, and so I messaged him and I said, I think I can help out with this. What specifically are you wanting to connect with? And he said, literally just to send an email. It's personal. It's about something that he shared, his content that has had a huge impact on my life. And I just wanted to thank him personally. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I can facilitate that. But I'm thinking like, why? Like, why don't you just reach out? Like, why don't you just like, you know, I don't know. And so, and today, so I sent him that too. And I sent him the link to this person's LinkedIn. And I said, why don't you just message him yourself? Like, I think he probably takes care of his own messages. So why don't you just send him a message on LinkedIn? And he's like, oh, I could try that. And I'm like, yeah. And so just the mindset piece, I don't think it's challenging to get what you want, you or connect with people that you want. It's just a matter of being willing to put yourself out there and do it without, um, even if you're afraid, like, first of all, and I'm sure, Nina, you can talk through this about just, working through that fear to turn it neutral and then just do it. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? They ignore you. You're where you are. So for me, getting guests was never ever an issue. I had more people that I was connected with, that people who I was connected wanted to recommend me to other people. Like, it's just a beautiful network. Once you start giving value to people, they want to give value to you too.
Yeah.
So as a podcaster who hit,
I would love to just dive in a little bit around the fact you didn't have any fear about connecting to people, even if they seem to be at a higher level.
yeah,
Because there's a lot of people who do have that fear. They'll think, well, who am I to do that? They won't be interested in me. And, there's just a fear because they feel inferior.
yeah.
So I'd love to dig into your mindset about your thinking about connecting with these people. I mean, what is your thinking about connecting with people at a higher level? And you do so
Great
automatically,
question.
but
Yeah.
what's the process in your thought, in your thinking about this?
It's a great question. And it's at the core of everything I do. And I didn't think about it until I was in this business where I had to be able to teach it and to explain it, because I just think it's normal. It's always been me.
Yeah. If you feel
So
it's normal, but I would say for many, many
for
people,
most people, it's
it's not.
not.
And this is what
And
keeps
who
certain
knew?
people stuck in their business because they're not reaching out because of
Yes.
fear of rejection.
Yes, for sure. So the thing is, I've written, so one person I want to interview who I've not gotten a yes from yet, but I'm not giving up because I'm committed to getting his yes, is a man by the name of Joseph Gordon-Levitt. You may have heard of him before. He's an actor and director and all of this, but that's not why I want to interview him. I want to interview him about Hit Record, his one of his companies. And so I just decided that he's on my list of people I want to interview one day. And I think he's been on my list since like 2015, 2016, when I first learned about Hit Record. I just have held that intention. I've done some activities as they come to my awareness, like, oh, he's going to be, oh, let me send him a message, or hey, send a congratulations, connect on Facebook, do things that will add value, even if he doesn't know it. Uh, just this past spring, I was a member of the press at a large event where he was speaking. And so I even went up to him and said, hey, I would love to interview. Well, first I sent him a private message through the app for the event. He didn't respond. Then I got, he was doing a press conference. I made sure I had a seat in the front row. I had my hand up first. I was the first person to ask a question. I asked, he answered. After, he was swarmed, and I just happened upon him at some point, and I said, I would love to interview you one of these days. So whenever that works, we're going to get to know each other. And that was it, right?
You plant
So
the seed.
planting the seed. But the thing is I'm not attached to, oh my gosh, how are they going to respond? Is he going to say yes? Is he going to think I'm an idiot? Is he going to say no? Am I, I don't have those thoughts. I could have those thoughts, but there's no value in having those thoughts because he's not diminishing me. I'm diminishing me if I do that. And so when I reached out, when I had zero street cred, I had zero podcast, nothing. Um, I just, first of all, looked up, I researched, who do I want to interview and why? Why specifically them? I'm not just looking to fill a spot. I'm looking for the best person I can find on this particular thing, right? And I had more than one person on the list, but I always went for the gold. So then I would reach out. But before reaching out, I would always look at what matters to them. How can I figure out what they value, how they interact, what they want out of their life? And then when I would reach out, I reached out with my own personality. So for the summit specifically, again, back when I was first starting, nobody knew me. I had put together a PDF document where I basically told someone about the the summit. I came from a space of there is nothing I want from you except the 60 minutes. And here's what I'm going to do for the summit. Here's why I'm doing it. Here's what I care about. Here's why I think you are the perfect person for this. And I turned everybody into cartoon rock stars. I had my designer do that even before they said yes, and I sent it in a personal way. So there was the PDF, and I used my humor, I used my style to say, like the FAQs, who are you? Or where did you, so there was a who are you, and then like where did you come from, and then I said jail, like literally I came from jail, I was a correctional officer, right? And so that would get a little laugh, and it would get somebody's attention rather than just going
Yeah, you stand out. You have to be different to get their attention because they get so many
yeah, you have to
all the time.
engage.
Yes.
Absolutely. Engage in a way that they want. And so when yeah, no matter who I want to have on my show, no matter what show I want to go to or what show I want to put my clients on or what show I want to help or what show my students want to be on and help them get on. It's all about first of all knowing why that person, and the mindset behind that is just, I mean, it's just who I am. I've never been able to understand people who come from an all about me position where it's like I want you should because I want. It's like, wait a minute, I don't even know you. Why should I? It's even like, as a young woman, I don't know if anybody can relate to this, but even hearing, I don't hear this anymore because I've closed myself off to hearing it. But when I was younger, I would hear people say all the time when I was a kid and a young woman, smile, why don't you smile for me? I'm going,
I used to get that a lot as well.
yeah, it's like, who are you? And out of the blue, why should I smile for you? Like, it's just so bizarre. And this is our normal behavior. And so by recognizing that I want to meet someone in a space that makes them feel good rather than makes them feel like confused or used or whatever, it's very natural and easy.
It
So I hope that.
sounds so easy. And guest podcasting, so we were to flip it over to being a guest on someone else's podcast. That is a huge asset in our business, isn't it?
It is. And
It's so underused by many entrepreneurs.
it's underused. However, a big part of it being underused is there's a lot of people out there talking about podcasts and being a featured guest. And when I started just a few years ago, it wasn't like it is today.
Not
Now everybody and their mother wants you to hire them to put them on podcasts. And
yeah.
I'm actually, in fact, in the process of putting together an ebook, which is already amazing. We've already got almost 60 contributors, and I'm going for 100. But I'll be releasing it very soon.
Wow.
But it's called Stop Pitching Podcasts. And it's all about why these podcasters are going to reject your pitch. And it's all the reasons that people are teaching. And it all comes down to, again, it's all about you. You have to make it about them. So when people want to be a guest on podcasts, most of the time, once they realize that's an option, it's like, oh, I'm so great. I'm going to share this value. And so I'm going to just pitch myself and let people know I'm going to be a great guest for your show. And there's a million things people do wrong. And I really go through that in that document. And there's a training available. I can give you that link if you
Oh,
want.
it'll be wonderful. We'll put that up with a podcast. As soon as the
Cool.
book's available, we'll add it to the podcast page.
Awesome. So it's thenicoleholland.com/pitch. And eventually the book will be there too. And when it does, anybody who signed up before the book was available, I'll be emailing that out to you as well. So if the book's not there at the time of release, it will still be available to you if you sign up for the free training.
Brilliant.
And it's all about how not to get rejected and how to get the yes instead. But the core of everything I do comes down to that relationship that come from of you have value. I would love to get a part of that. I would love to collaborate. So we know that. Now it's a question of why. Why that particular show? And if you don't know that, which most people don't, when they start pitching and they do it unsuccessfully, they get way, and there's a lot of people out there telling you it's a numbers game, you just got to do it. No, you don't. Because if you are trying to be on a credible and established podcast, you will not get there by doing these low level spammy tactics. You just won't. You'll get booked, and you'll get booked on shows that are new and don't know any better. And that, in my long winded thing before, is what I was going to get to. Is I started, once I hit new and noteworthy, I was getting pitched left, right, and center. All these PR people, all these people. And I would go, oh my gosh, I'm honored. The PR people would send me, oh, this person's so, and I was like, wow. And they want to be on my show. I'm honored. Yes, let's set it up. So I'd set it up. And then they'd come on the show and I'd realize, wait a minute, this person has never even heard of me before, or they've never listened to my show.
Yeah.
They're all about them and have no interest in my audience or anything. And they were terrible interviews. They were terrible guests, and they made me feel used. And so I decided at that point, no, this is not happening. And I started teaching about, how to be a great guest, how to get and develop relationships with the hosts and all of the things. So
That's great teaching, because I get lots of emails about people pitching to be on my email, on my podcast, and they just write a bland sentence about me. There's no thought or research. So there's people, you said, when they're all about themselves, I've got value, this and that. What about the business owners who have the opposite problem? They think they don't have any value, they don't have anything to contribute, and who's going to be interested in interviewing them? How can they start, putting themselves forward to be podcast guests on meaningful podcasts? So it's a strategic way of getting to a bigger audience. How can they do that if they don't have that confidence or that self-belief in themselves? How can they make a start?
I want to give a tool. I want to give a process so that you can take something away, because it's really important for me. Anytime I'm interviewed or whatever, I really want people to be able to take something away actionable. But if I'm 100% honest, Nina, I think you may be on a similar page. It is really hard to do it yourself. And it's getting a coach. It's getting somebody to handhold. It's getting somebody to champion you and getting somebody who knows how, right? So whether it's a mindset coach, whether it's a media coach, like I do that with my clients who are in interviews that convert. That's my program where I help them get on shows. But it starts with mindset. Like everything starts with mindset. Nina, of course, is a podcast, a coach for mindset. But you have to be able to. I don't like the term fake it till you make it, because I think that when people generally do that, I'm going to fake it till I make it, they are coming from an inauthentic place. And that is not where to come from. But if you're not able to feel confident, you're not ready. Please don't be a guest, in fact, because it will come through. And in my opinion, I don't want people to be on podcasts until they are at least able to show up as a rock star, even if they're doubting everything. And I tell you what, I work with some really, really successful people, and I have worked with people in all walks of life. And everybody has the self-doubt. Every single person. It does not matter what level of success or your perceived level of success people have gotten to. They are the same as you are. We all go through it. So I would say,
yes, it's absolutely true. And it's quite, in a way, it's quite reassuring that it's the case, and it's all in context, isn't it? Wherever they are in their business and what's going on.
Yeah. So I can give you a bit of a framework or a tool, and I'm not.
Really,
yeah.
Well,
I don't even know what I'm going to say. So hang on, let me think real quick. So to, yeah. So one thing you can do is if you want to be on a podcast or you want to start using podcasts to grow your visibility, if you're a thought leader in the making, if you're like, I want to be on stage one day. I see myself as Marianne Williamson, or I see myself, changing the world through whatever your specialty is. I have this app that is going to, make something obsolete. If you're a disruptor, you have to be heard, but you can't fake it. If you don't believe in your own value, nobody else is going to. And self-deprecating is pretty normal. Like it's a process, but it's not going to help you. And especially with podcasts. Sorry, this guy just jumped up.
oh,
um, especially with podcasts, since they are what we call evergreen. They're basically going to be out there. Take the time to work on you first and on your mindset first. And once you believe you deserve to be heard, that's when we start working through getting the yes, right? And doing the research and knowing what show you want to be on and why and all of that stuff. And you have to be realistic. Don't go after your top choice if you're not feeling like a top guest. Go after something more obscure. I like to start people out who I'm teaching and coaching on, if they're not there yet, figuring out what they are passionate about, a hobby, something they're not making money from, and play there first. There are tons of, like, there's a podcast for every interest in the world.
that's a
And if
really
there's
good
not,
idea. That's a really good idea. So talk
yeah,
about something that you are passionate about.
that you're passionate about, there's no money involved, there's no charge behind it, and that you can have fun with. That's a great way to get started. But the process to go through, even just to get your mindset ready about the value in business that you have to offer, is just start writing a list. Break out a blank piece of paper and start writing a list at the top of saying something like, I am deserving of being heard because dot dot dot. And then start focusing on what you have done that has felt good, that you feel like, wow, I've showed up, I've helped people, I have value to share, right? Even if it's something totally unrelated to your business, it can be. Just start getting the pen going, start thinking about what are the things that make me deserving of being heard, that I know something that I didn't know before, and that can help somebody else move
I can
forward.
share with someone else.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's a great first step. And then what's the actual process if someone wanted to do it themselves, just give it a go, see what happens? Is it sending an email or trying to get hold of them on the phone? What's the best way?
for
Just making a
for
cold
guesting.
approach. Yeah, for guesting.
Yeah, there's no one right way except doing your research. It starts with your research, right? So everybody doesn't want to be called. Like, if somebody were to call me on the phone that I don't know, that's that's spam. Like, if somebody writes me, that's spam. If I get pitched all kinds of crazy ways, where I have a media contact form for me to be a guest, for me to go and speak, and it's very clear what that form is for. It specifically says what it's for, and it's on my media page. So people will actually use that contact form to pitch themselves. Do you really think by doing something that is not really, you
It's
think
misleading.
that's gonna get, yeah, like, and it baffles me, and so many PR people do that too, and I'm like, once I wrote back and I said, don't ever contact me again for any of your clients, because what you're doing is perpetuating such a disgusting practice.
Yeah,
And
it's lazy.
she said, it is. And she said, oh, I thought it was for being a guest. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. And I even have a form, I have like a way for people to pitch me to be a guest. And if you're not going to do it the way I've asked for, you're not going to get the yes. And so I just really would encourage you to consider again, do the research. Who is it that you want to be on their show? Why them? Why that show specifically? We already know you want to be on the show. So get that out of the equation when you're coming up with the answer. This has to be what's in it for them.
Yes. So you turn your focus to that other person and the value that they have and the value you can bring then to their audience. It's a completely, also be very respectful in the way that you approach them as well.
Exactly. And again, I get into that in the training and in the ebook. For if you go to thenicoleholland.com/pitch, pitch, that like it's there. There's 5 things I cover in that training and the book, and almost every podcaster, their answer to the question I ask, what is going to get somebody an instant no or rejection, an instant rejection or being ignored by you if they want to be on your podcast. Almost every single podcaster I've ever talked to fall into one of 5 categories. And I go through those in that training.
Excellent. Fantastic. It sounds like a very meaty training, and we will put a link on the podcast page so everyone can go there and have a look, because I think it's a wonderful thing to do. And as we were talking earlier, it's something that I haven't really been using. I love interviewing people for my show, and then I forget, I could be interviewed on other people's show as well. And it's so much fun just spreading this content around, getting to as many people as possible. And it's free. And it's
usually
great. Usually. And it's great content. And thank you so much for being so open and sharing so wonderfully, not just about the mindset, but also about the actual process of becoming a guest. Because I would encourage everyone who's listening to really think deeply about becoming a podcast guest, because it could be a wonderful way of widening your audience and, getting people to come onto your email list because they want to know more about you. They want to find out what you do and how you work. Nicole, thank you. It's been such a pleasure, and I feel we could have talked for hours about this. We barely scratched the surface, but the content has been wonderful. And for everyone who's been listening and watching, thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time, bye-bye for now.